Hello, everyone. This is the Cluster API provider for AWS Community Meeting. This is Monday, April 12th. Just to let everybody know, we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct. And in summary, that means treat people the way you want to be treated, be nice. We use the raise hand feature to pass around the speaker. And yeah, so quickly look at the agenda here. As a PSA, want to let folks know we released 2.5.0 last week. That includes a bunch of networking API changes that came from folks. We also have some stuff for an external YDC provider, Rosa, and a bunch of bug fixes. So yeah, thank you everyone for contributing, and go ahead and take a look at that. And then the next topic is something that Damiano and I have been discussing a little bit for the release cadence. We're looking at possibly putting out some nightlies for the manifests. It looks like there is prior art for Cap B and Cap V. So that is something we can lean on. The biggest question I think I have right now is publishing the binaries and doing like a pre-release release on GitHub. So we'll need to figure out how we want to do that. But yeah, does anybody have any topics on this that they would want to discuss? Any questions?
Uh, what what's going to be consuming these?
So one impotence for this is getting features out there for more regular testing, so that people can consume them and try them out. Um, I'm actually not anticipating a ton of consumers for this. This would be for people like, especially people that get features merged. They can go try it out and come back with more signal if they've got their own testing or CI that they can provide that maybe doesn't make it into our suite. Um, the other thing I think it would benefit us is it gives us build signal more regularly and across images and our own binary builds, and then CAPI and cube testing. Um, it does sound like there's some things happening with these staging buckets that we're moving to the community ones, which actually have I forget what they're called. They have a retention of 60 days right now. So the previous Google hosted ones didn't have that, or Google provided ones didn't have that. Um, but now there is a 60-day period that uh, staging images will last. So we're getting some pruning already of what these will generate, because there are, right, if we do that, we don't want to add a ton of cost to shoving these up.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the ability for someone who wants to use Kappa does not want to get checkout, build, create the manifests, but instead just change a version
Change
reference.
it, yeah, change a string. I also know we with the Go releaser change, I don't know if I put it in here. Yeah, right now the Go releaser only looks at the release calculation, only looks at release branches, whereas like pre-releases will be cut off of main. So this line in the make files is insufficient. So we'll need to fix that first, but I don't think that'll be terribly complicated.
And one other question: these nightly releases are off the main branch.
Yes.
So if someone is looking to, let's say, validate a backported fix, that's not going to be covered by this.
Not right now. Yeah. I think that's a good point that like expanding this to the supported release lines should
mhm.
probably be a thing. Um, I think we should start with main and
Yeah.
then move backwards.
And does this does this change anything about alpha beta releases? We really haven't used that very much in the past, but with nightly releases, uh, you could I guess think of it as sort of an informal alpha or beta.
I don't think it should change anything about the alpha beta process right now. There may be a time where we say, hey, this nightly has all the features we want, so we just retag it as uh, alpha or beta. But I don't think that changes anything yet. And if it would, I think we need to have a wider discussion. Um, it's just I think it's a way for people to get more rapid signal. Um, with the I think there's also an implicit expectation with nightlies that it's not supported, right? Like it's what's there right now. Uh it's not necessarily we put any kind of boundary on like alpha beta. But yeah, I think eventually we could get to a point where we say, hey, this night we would just promote it. Damiano.
Yeah, I just wanted to um, provide my 2 cents here. In my opinion, like considering how the nightly process works, um, with respect to instead like the alpha, beta release candidate and GA releasing process, like it's a completely different kind of approach to uh, putting out an artifact. And so I don't think it applies the same way like alpha and beta apply. And so like it's is not like the same kind of um, instrument, the same kind of tool that the other kind of releases are. And so this one has a difference where it gets built every night at a certain time. It gets built by a periodic job, and it just builds, a binary of whatever is in the branch that we target, and then it pushes the image, and then it generates a manifest where the image is the reference to the new image that is pushed is replaced, and the manifest is pushed to a bucket as well. So basically, you can push the image, fetch the manifest, apply the manifest, and the manifest will already contain the reference to the nightly that is, coming out together with the manifest. And so you can get a quick and dirty deployment strategy for the latest Kappa version. But yeah, as Nolan was saying, like this doesn't have any sort of change log, any sort of like supported guarantees, or is not like necessarily something that we keep an eye on and that we like maintain. Is just to give us a signal on like what is the status of the branch, and also to give folks that just merged to the main branch or to a release branch a way to test out things that they just landed and they want to try out or demo or POC on without like forcing us to get an alpha, beta, or release candidate out for them to do so. And so it's more a way for us to give them this rather than us giving out something else with respect to like alphas and betas and stuff like that. So I think we are looking at it from that angle instead of like, for me, being an early bird release kind of thing.
So I have a question, guys. So is this nightly image will be published in GCR? Like, where it will be published?
It's in the
So
GCR
the
bucket.
image is, yeah, the image is pushed into a container registry the same way we push a normal release, but it has a tag that references the name of the branch and the date of the publishing, and so it's like the same path, aside from it being a staging path rather than the generally available path to the registry. And then the tag is not like v242, or is like main build nightly underscore and the date of the build. And so it's different in that regard, and is like ephemeral, as we were saying, is not gonna stay there forever. It's gonna get removed in 60 days, and so people can just try those out, but they cannot rely on them because they are cleaned up after a while, and this is the nature of them, and intrinsically they carry its testing nature and nothing more. Like, they cannot be used in production because otherwise they could crash at any moment when they get pulled from the registry.
Thank you, makes sense. Yeah.
One thing I think we need to do on these is, if we decide to adopt this pattern that CapV and Capi, Core Capi, and other projects are taking on, if we decide to go along this way and we think, these nightlies are a good idea for Kappa, I think we will need to nail a bit better the process for actually using them, in terms of improving documentation and in general, like the UI, for telling people how to try them out, and provide like some good resources on using them, basically. Not sure what other things.
Yeah, Rich.
Sorry, I was a bit late. I missed the part where you were talking about where the patch or the nightly manifests were stored. Did you say it was into a bucket?
Yeah, they are stored in a bucket, which is alongside, like, it's a different path of the same project, where we also push the images. I think it's called like GCB, is like the Google Cloud bucket that the Cluster Lifecycle project uses. And this is what the other projects are pushing or publishing those manifests as well. So we just copied what Capi and what CapV are doing, under the suggestion of Stefan and Fabrizio.
And that's cool.
And yeah, this is a community owned version, so we actually would have had to make this change regardless for our staging bucket, because this artifacts.k.staging, that's going away, and this also comes with 60-day retention. So that's where Damiano was getting at, that it's going to end up being deleted eventually. Like, you only have 60 days to use that nightly.
And can we let the user create issue based on nightly build image? Because like eventually it's gonna be deleted. So
You I mean, there's nothing preventing a user creating an issue and saying I experienced it in this nightly. We might want a way to quickly capture the git SHA that was associated with that nightly, so that because that is more permanent. But yeah, you're right. Like if they report an issue with the nightly, it's going to be hard to reproduce if we don't get to it within those 60 days. But if we provide some way of grabbing the, whether that's a command or something, to get the git SHA associated with that nightly, that would allow us to replicate.
And 60 days, I guess it's a good time, like, you know, to triage the issue and make it like solvable. But yeah, but just in case, so then if the user like using a nightly image, maybe we need to add the get ID on it, or we can automate this somehow. Yes, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, on this topic, just to respond to Daniel and to Mohammed and in general on the git SHA suggestion. So the approach we copied is straight from CAPI and CAPV. So I think on one side it's good to maintain the same approach, so we don't reinvent the wheel. That doesn't block us from suggesting them to use a SHA to tag the nightly tags for the images. Although, if one wants, it's kind of easy to look up the SHA from the tag of the image, because even if the tag of the image doesn't contain the git SHA, the actual jobs that build the nightly are all available in the test grid pro dashboard. And so one can look back at the tag and see from what SHA it was built. And so you can always like figure out what tag it was. And so you could sit on that tag manually and rebuild the image from there to just detect. Like if you need to reproduce the build to just, you know, find the bug or something or investigate. So yeah. And on the naming structure, I think is unique, Daniel, even though they are being reaped at a certain point. They are unique because they contain the date for the specific day from when the nightly was built, because the nightlies are like built once a day at midnight UTC, and so they contain like 2024 0429, for example, and so they are always guaranteed to be unique. Although, yeah, they are pulled every 60 days. So,
yeah, to answer more directly, it's not going to be reused because it's based on the date it was built. Richard?
Yeah, another question, but before I say that, yeah, I think nightlies would be really, really useful. I was trying to test something this week and having to build everything manually, which was a bit of a pain. But more on the, so my question is around, so I can see, thanks for the link there, that we publish the manifest or the output of the release directory to a bucket. Is there any documentation anywhere? Is it, so if we want to use that, we just have to do like essentially do the equivalent of gsutil to copy it back down and then use a custom cluster cuttle config to point to the manifest?
Yeah, so this is what we were talking about earlier, I think. So I don't know, maybe like if it wasn't that clear, or maybe you didn't join yet. We actually, like, one of the things I raised is that we need to improve the documentation for users to, you know, start using the nightlies, because in general, like, it's quite obscure and there is no like manual or whatever like indication that tells the user how they can leverage these. So I'm suggesting, like, if we agree on taking them on. And it looks like we were already since 2021, but like it was not documented at all. And it was like the old process pointed to the old buckets and the old registries. But if we still think it's valuable and we want to carry on with them, we like one of the things I'm suggesting, and it looks like you are suggesting that too, is like to improve documentation so that people know what to do here. And the second question is quite easy to use them because like they are hosted in a bucket, but the bucket is public and it's accessible through HTTP. So you can basically click on a link and it downloads the YAML file that you can directly apply. And the YAML file already contains the reference to the corresponding image build that got pushed to the GCR registry. And so like the user can just kubectl apply -f and pass the URL to the latest reference in the bucket for the manifest, and everything should get applied straight up.
It feels like we could also do some tooling somewhere, whether that's in ClusterCut or somewhere else, to make that even easier, couldn't we?
Yeah, I think that's something that could be done. I would suggest we maybe move on. I think it sounds like documentation needs to be either improved or written. I don't know that there's documentation at all, but I think that's something we can include on here. But it sounds like in general nobody's really opposed to this. Like we're getting built-in retention policies to help us from driving up the CNCF's bills. I think there's definitely stuff for letting us build or get the YAML files now and deploy the images. The only thing I think we're missing, aside from documentation, so we're missing documentation and building the binaries such that ClusterCutl we could test those as well with a nightly. Like if you make any changes to the init CloudFormation stuff, I don't think that is reflected. You could probably get the binary out of the container image, but I think we can solve that stuff later. But in general, it looks like people are in favor of this. Damiano, you're still have your hand up. Did you have something else, or is that from previously?
No, sorry, I'm on the phone, and so it's not super easy to click around and lower them.
Okay, no worries. Okay, I'm gonna move on to Daniel here. So wanting to talk about the cloud init issues that we've been seeing. I know this has been going on for a while, so yeah, Daniel, I'm curious what you've got to say here.
Yeah, I think so. First, I'm surprised we haven't heard more about this. I suppose it's because this version of CloudInit is maybe it's so far limited to Ubuntu. We also there's also a workaround noted in the image builder repo, so maybe people are using that workaround. But the bottom line is, once you are creating a machine image with the CloudInit version 23.3 or greater, Kappa's mechanism for securely fetching the bootstrap the user data, it breaks. And I spent time looking for a workaround that's in that pull request. This particular workaround looks like it's incompatible with older versions of CloudInit, but otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward workaround. I also tried something else that's called a custom handler. That's not going to work. This is an issue, or the fact that we are sort of fetching the user data in this way has to do with the sort of conflation of bootstrapping and provisioning. There's a separate effort in CAPI to kind of break apart those responsibilities into separate providers, but that's also been going on for a while. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I think I'm wondering what we want to do. What users want. Would users prefer, for example, to continue, downgrading Cloud Init? I mean, I think at some point that might be that might not be desirable because of fixes and let's say important security fixes in Cloud Init. Do we want to use the workaround that I have in this PR that is, and then say that, okay, we won't support Cloud Init below a certain version? That's another option. Or perhaps we just say, look, we actually don't have a mechanism by which we can securely fetch user data that doesn't break with Cloud Init. And so then we remove the feature. I think that's definitely another option on the table. I think we may be the only provider that provides or that supports this kind of mechanism. Anyway, those are the things. It's hard to make this decision without hearing more from users, but we really haven't.
When did you hit it, Daniel? I know this has been ongoing for a while now. What was the scenario where you had this issue?
Well, yeah, this was probably back in last October. And I think the issue happened once we rebuilt the had images. I think maybe upstream images. Sorry, not the upstream. We built images and we pulled in the latest available Cloud Init. I think this must be on Ubuntu, and the cluster or the machines failed to bootstrap. And after much digging, figured out what the issue was. At first, it looked like it was a Cloud Init issue, but really, we can't blame Cloud Init because Kappa had been patching some source code in Cloud Init that was internal. It was never, you couldn't even really think of it as a private. I mean, maybe as a private API. It was basically, you weren't, users were not intended to touch this code. And at some point, that code was removed. So this Kappa's mechanism broke, and so our workaround since then has just been to downgrade Cloud Init. I actually learned quite a bit because Cameron McAvoy he reported this, and then in the cluster API channel there was a thread So yeah, it's been since last fall. I know that there are, at least one other organization working around it by downgrading CloudInit, but again, that can only work for so long before, yeah, before that turns into its own bad idea. Um,
I know from our side, we haven't observed anything like this because we use Ignition. Um, so that's kind of where we haven't really seen it. I'm wondering if do this seems like something that the bootstrap provider should be focusing on, like you said, and maybe we should be looking into fixing it there. But I don't know have enough context to know, like, is that going to be a really long road and we need to get something in the meantime? Um,
it's not going to be fixed in the bootstrap provider itself, but if we, so if Cappy can make the sort of migration from a bootstrap provider to separate bootstrap and provisioning providers, then it will be possible for the sensitive data, which is really, I think, the bootstrap token, the sensitive data to be stored and fetched in a way that you right now all that sensitive data is a CloudInit configuration, and so user data, and so it needs to be fetched, but then it needs it to be read by CloudInit, so it becomes this. There's kind of a chicken and egg problem, and that's what Kappa has been sort of solving, but that solution relied on some CloudInit internals. So yeah, I don't think there's a short-term solution for this coming upstream. I think the likeliest solution is the pull request that I have, but it comes with a caveat, I think, of not being compatible with older CloudInit versions. So it's an option. We can say, as we can, at some point we can say, okay, we're not compatible with CloudInit versions older than XYZ.
is there anything more we would have to do from our side to support this? Like I know we've talked a few times back and forth, I think in the issue about building building updated images that we include, because I think we currently make and provide images that don't have this latest version of CloudInit.
We specifically. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying we're looking at pushing our own Kappa AMIs, which are kind of in this weird state that we're not like these aren't officially supported. They're kind of there, but you should build your own kind of thing. I guess I'm just wondering if we take this workaround, is there anything more we would need to do? Should we like make sure we push forward and get these AMIs fixed so it's that they are not broken? Or do we update documentation to say, hey, you need to build your own very explicitly?
Yeah, I understand what you're asking. So one thing to mention is that the current generation of AMIs, which were most recently built last November, we, knowing about this issue, actually reached out to the person responsible for building the AMIs and asked them to apply the workaround that is to downgrade CloudInit. By default, if you build a sort of default Kappa image with the default configuration in Image Builder, it will not boot if you're using secure, user data fetching, which I think is enabled by default. So with if we merge this workaround and we built new AMIs, they should work out of the box with Image Builder, so we wouldn't have to downgrade CloudInit or make any special adjustments. And yeah, as far as documenting, I mean, we don't have anything in our documentation that says, oh, by the way, we require a specific version of CloudInit, but implicitly we do, at least for this, for this particular feature, and possibly in other ways. And that's something that we could add to our documentation.
Richard, you copied this pull request in. Is this, let's see how this is related. Oh, this is the Bootstrap versus provision provider.
Yeah, so I'll paste in actually the link to the proposal as well, if that helps. Yeah, let me put that in as well. That's the actual doc.
So I guess I'm in favor of the workaround as long as we get these AMIs built with the new version. Because I mean, the workaround doesn't really look all that complicated now. It's just making sure we move up to new AMIs. Richard, is there more to be done? Or like, are we just waiting on reviews, or is there more to do and test?
So when I was testing the build with an AWS account where used this, it didn't actually, I think we had the issue with enabling public AMIs. So that's the only thing is we need to update I guess the instructions in that PR around maybe just running the AWS CLI manually to do that, as opposed to try and get that into some Terraform. And then we need to get someone from Kate's Infra to review the PR and run it in the account for the first time. Then we got access, and then we can do what we want with the publishing.
Okay.
Should I add to that PR with a workaround? Should I add some document changes to actually call out the CloudInit version dependency? I mean, I think it's always been there implicitly, but now maybe it's worth calling out explicitly.
I think that's worthwhile to call it out explicitly, especially because now we know for a fact, like, upgrading your version would help this. So in the worst case, if people hit these issues, they can build their own AMIs and upgrade that without waiting on this. But getting for the people who do rely on those AMIs, I guess we'll just have to get access to publishing AMIs. I think that is currently owned by VMware. Is that right? Is it part of that Terraform is to move that to community resources? So yeah, I'm a big plus one for the documentation. That way, at least people could self-serve. So yeah, I think in my opinion, it's going to be a good thing to document the cloud init requirement explicitly, even if we relied on it before. And then we can get this in and probably backport it for folks. And then if they need to take some action to make their own AMIs, then they can do so. Although, oh, these are just timeouts. Okay, these are not related. That's probably another thing we need to discuss at some point is why are all these things timing out? But I won't change the subject just yet.
Oh, are we talking about the PR?
Yeah, I was looking at the PR to see why the tests were failing.
Yeah,
but
oh yeah. So I wrote that up in the and there's a comment. But yeah, the reason that this PR is failing on those specific tests are because those specific tests use so they are we're using 125, so Kubernetes 125, and we're using images that were created earlier, and they use a cloud init version that is old enough that um, it does not treat files under a specific directory as sort of as configuration, and or yeah, it it doesn't interpolate, it doesn't treat them as Jinja templates, and I'm relying on that functionality. So that was added. Yeah, exactly. That was added, but the images are old enough. So that I don't know if during you know when we create new AMIs in our own right in the CNCF managed account, if we're going to create AMIs for 125, then they'll have a more up-to-date cloud init, right? Because I think, yeah, that we just use whatever the latest cloud init version at the time we build the image.
Yeah, so if we apply this workaround without building new AMIs for at least Cube 125, then we're basically the CI is going to be broken on these tests.
Right. Yeah, we can't merge this until I think until either we change the test to use a newer Kubernetes version that that is then using newer or images that were built more recently, or we rebuild images for that Kubernetes version.
I'm going to put a hold on here so I remember that because I'll forget it. Because these look like, so if I looked at them really quickly, I would have just thought, hey, these are timeouts. So I'm glad we discussed that here. Richard?
Yeah, I was just saying that I'll block some time out tomorrow to carry on with that PR for the account. Yeah, it just keeps getting pushed to the back of the queue. So I'll block a good few hours out tomorrow to follow up on that, just to see if I can push that along.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, Daniel, for being persistent with this, because it seems like a really annoying thing to have to chase down. But yeah, yeah, it seems like bumping cloud init and then letting it handle things would be the path. Cool. I think, are we content with the action there? I'll take, okay. All right. There's 10 minutes left. I don't think we will necessarily do bug triage yet, although I think maybe next week we should talk about getting more regular bug triage happening, whether that's through like something like Triage Party or something else. But did want to see that Tarva is reminding us they have a PR for updating how resources are created. Instead of using CloudFormation, they are using API calls. If folks could take a look at that, that would be great. One thing I did see is several of the CI. Actually, I'm going to ping him right now. Several of the CI tests are failing, and some of these are because he needs to go in and update some things. So I'll give him a ping there, and if folks can keep an eye on this, that would be appreciated. Okay, I think we can call it there, unless anyone has any last minute topics. Okay, all right, then thank you all very much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you for hosting.
Yep.
Yeah, cheers for hosting.
Uh,
Thanks, man.